Hi guys, welcome back to the Pretty Bookish channel where we talk all things books all the time. My name is Kanya. If you're new here, welcome to my channel. If you're not new here, then I don't even need to introduce myself because like we fam at this point. Let's get some of the admin out of the way. If you haven't already, can you please don't forget to subscribe to my channel, comment, like, watch any of my other videos and let me know what you think. Let me know what you think of this video, what you think of some of these books, because today's video is something that, do you know what, I've been going back and forth with myself to think like whether or not I'm going to shoot this video, because I always feel like shooting a worst of video feels very like, it feels like very dwelling in the negative. Do you know what I mean? Like trying to compile a list of like the worst of whatever. So I thought to myself, okay, wait, but I actually have a couple of books that like have been bothering me this year, and like it's not necessarily that I think they're complete crap, but they are definitely the books that, as you can see from the title, the most disappointing books for 2020 for me. These are the books that I had such high hopes for when I read, and for me, like that's how I frame a disappointing book. I had such high hopes, whether that was because of the reviews or because I read the synopsis or whether I liked the writer and I've read a previous book and I loved that book. So all of these books that are on this list, it's not necessarily that I think that they're all crap or like really bad, but they all disappointed me in the sense that they didn't live up to what I expected of them. And so they're going to be the top two, because I don't think I'm going to make a video titled like the worst books of 2020, because I think like reading is such a subjective experience and I wouldn't want to call someone's book like the worst book. Although I have spoken a lot of crap about a lot of people's books, so it's not like I'm above it all. Let me not lie to you. I'm not like above it all. I just feel like this makes more sense to me to be like, these books disappointed me. Like I'm very upset. So I was going through them. I was like, when I was taking them down, and it's so interesting because you know how I posted the video of like the most surprising books that I liked, and I commented that like a lot of them are white writers, particularly white female writers. A lot of these books are black writers, and I think like a lot of the books in this video are black writers, and I'm just like, oh god, no, this is so annoying. But I think what it is, like when I thought about it, I was like, it's because I think I tend to hold black writers to not a higher standard, but I expect that I'm going to love their work by virtue of the fact that I feel like when they're writing fantasy, fiction, non-fiction, whether it's like romance, contemporary fiction, whatever, I feel like because they draw on experiences that I'm familiar with, and like especially with fantasy, talk to mythologies that I'm also familiar with, I feel like I have a better chance of loving that book than books that like are written predominantly from like a white, especially like white writers who write contemporary fiction or like, you know, contemporary romance. Don't get me wrong, love contemporary fiction and contemporary romance. So many like white writers that I'm obsessed with, writers of every single race I'm obsessed with, but I tend to gravitate more towards black writers. But these are the ones that really, they disappointed me so much, and some of them like are heartbreaking because I was ready to stand for life. Like, fair enough, I'm a very judge a book by its cover kind of person, so some of these it's my own fault because like at least like one of them I didn't even know what it was about. I just liked the cover, so I bought it. So I mean, that is definitely my own fault because like, what was I thinking? But all in all, these are the books that like I was expecting a lot more from, and I'm really disappointed at how it ended up. But I mean, it happens when you read as many books as I do, and just generally when you read a lot of books, you're bound to not like something. It's not like you're going to like be obsessed. You can't stand everybody. Like you can't love everything. So there are going to be stuff that comes along that you thought you're going to love, and then it ends up like going completely left. So okay, I'm gonna start. I think there's about 10 of them. I don't think there's that many, but I'm gonna start and like give you a rough idea of why I didn't like it, and then just kind of like make a couple of comments. I'm not going to go into a whole breakdown. Hopefully I won't. Sometimes I start rambling when I'm like really annoyed about something, so hopefully we'll keep this brief. Okay, so the first book should come as no surprise to anybody who watched my vlog, who watched my channel, who actually follows me on Instagram, and that is Ties That Tether by Jane Igaro. Oh, I'm proper vexed about this book. Do you know when this book arrived? First of all, okay, I will give the props to whoever designed the cover because it's beautiful. So that is one of the shining lights of the book. When this book arrived and I opened that box with Take A Lot, I was like, yes! I was so excited because, guys, a contemporary fiction published by Berkeley, published by a major publisher that specialized in contemporary romance. centering a Black Nigerian woman who lives in Canada and navigating interracial dating and navigating the kinds of tensions between Canadian culture and your kind of Edo and your Nigerian heritage, and how do you meld those two and make sure you don't forget where you come from. Like, this is so relatable to me. Like, I grew up in South Africa, but like I grew up in a very white neighborhood, in a very, very white area of South Africa. I grew up in Pretoria, so if you know, you know. And I also grew up like in white suburbia. So this idea of trying to navigate these spaces and make sure that my closer part doesn't fall to the wayside, I related to this so much. And then the actual book, oh my lord, I've already uploaded my video talking about this book, but like if you've watched that, you should know the writing was lazy in my opinion. I just found the writing to be lackluster. It was uninspired, it was boring. The plot was disjointed, it didn't flow. And then on top of that, the underlying messaging behind this book, in my opinion, was really pandering toward Western audiences. This book was not written for Black African women, contemporary Black African women of the diaspora, or even particularly Black African women on continent. It was not written for us. Like, this is a book that in my opinion was written for a predominantly white Western audience. And even in doing so, there's so much of this book that is problematic. And I'm just so disappointed, because of all the romances I read this year, with the exception of Talia Hibbert's Take a Hint, Daddy Brown, and Get a Life, Chloe Brown, these are the only ones that I saw that really centered like Black girls. And fair enough, I haven't read a lot, but like these are the ones that like have contemporary publishers that are huge on Bookstagram, and not just on Black Bookstagram, but Bookstagram in general. This was the only other one, and it just fell flat. And so yeah, this was really upsetting. This was one of the ones that disappointed me like a lot. I think this and Conjure Women were like the two biggest disappointments this year. So yeah, this actually like hurt my heart. So yeah. The next book that was a big disappointment, I don't want to talk about this again. Like, really, if I get started talking about Undercover Bromance, I'm going to be here all day. I'm just going to tell you guys once more, Liv is the worst. She is the ghetto of people. Liv is the female main character. If you haven't read this book or haven't watched my previous videos, I don't have anything else to say other than this book disappointed me. It made me vexed, it made me angry, and it's because the reason why I'm disappointed is because I really enjoyed Undercover Bromance. No, Bromance Book Club, which was the first book. I really enjoyed it. So the fact that this was like a catastrophe. And I'm just like, do you know what? Nah, fam. I don't want to talk about this. Do you know what? This is one of those books I think that I'm going to talk about for years to come. Videos where I want to be vexed. I'm just going to put this book in there because, oh God, it's like, oh my God, it raised my blood pressure so much. Anyway. The other one that was kind of a disappointment to me, because it actually wasn't that good to me, was The Music of What Happens by Bill Konigsberg. And I was so upset about this book because, first of all, I owned it in hardback because I bought it. I'm obsessed with queer YA. And since I bought this book the same time I bought I Wish You All the Best by Mason Diva, which I love so much. This book, do you know when something is just properly boring? Do you know when something is just like, I don't understand, like, there was no flavor, it was bland, it was chicken with never mind salt and pepper, no salt, no pepper, just a chicken breast cooked. Like, it was so bland and boring, and what annoyed me is that the subject matter being discussed and some of the characters' particular nuances, I mean, there's trigger warnings, like there's sexual assault and stuff like that. It should have been so much better than what it was. I just found both, I'll tell you what their names are now. Max and Jordan, I just found them, their relationship was, it wasn't believable to me. And also, you know, I always say this, YA and romance novels are known for their ridiculous plot lines where, like, this would never happen in real life, but will allow it. This one was just particularly over the top with the ridiculousness, and I was just like, I don't know, it just didn't hit for me, and it upset me a lot because I really thought I was gonna love it. Do you know what? I actually bought this book, I think in 2019, and it was one of those books that was on my shelf, and I was saving it for my birthday weekend because I thought, no, then I ended up reading it earlier than my birthday. Then I was just like, I've literally had this sitting on my shelf, saving it. And this is what you do. Very upsetting. Properly vex. Okay, the next one that also disappointed me was It's Not About the Burka, edited by Mariam Khan. It's a collection of essays by Muslim women, basically speaking about their own culture, about their own about their own religion, about their own lives, about their own identities, because there's a tendency a lot when it comes to women, Islamic women and Muslim women, to have a lot of like white Western feminists, specifically when you talk about women speak on their behalf, how they're oppressed, how they need to be liberated, etc., etc. And you rarely see Muslim women being able to speak for themselves, which is why I was so excited to get this book. I did a review on Instagram of this book, and the reason why this book disappointed me is because there's a glaring omission in this book, in my opinion, and that is the fact that there is little to no representation of Black African Muslim women in this book. And for a book that purports to allow Muslim women to speak for themselves, I find it really problematic that such a huge, because I think a lot of people don't know this, but like Africa has a very big Muslim population. There are many millions of Black African Muslim women, and the fact that they were not represented in this book barely at all. I think there's one writer who is Black, and she's, I think, Black British, if I'm not mistaken. I just thought that this was such a problematic omission. It overly represents, I think, it centers an Arabic Islamic women experience, and because I think anti-Blackness runs so rampant in that community, in Arabic spaces, in Middle Eastern countries, and in their communities, I feel like the omission is even worse, because it means that there's a lack of self-reflexivity that comes when you make such a glaring omission to a collection of essays. Like, there's no way there are no Black Islamic or Muslim women who could have been included. And in fact, there should have been more than one, because even if you look at it demographically, proportionally, there should definitely have been more than one. So that's why this book disappointed me so much, because I think it had an opportunity to do something really strong and powerful, and it kind of missed the mark for me. So that, I think that was like my only non-fiction book that like was a huge disappointment for me this year. Okay, so the next book is the one when I was talking at the beginning and saying that there's a book that I bought because of the cover and I didn't even read the synopsis. So basically, I feel like this situation with the Conjure Women is probably partly my fault, but also I feel like it's also not my fault, because even though I didn't know what it was about, when I realized it was a slave narrative, because I didn't know it was a slave narrative, I was still prepared to be like, okay, fine. I wasn't really looking to read a slave narrative, but I was like, okay, we move. I have it now. It's beautiful. Let's move. And then this is just such a perplexing situation with this book, because the seeds were all planted, the potential was all there, and then it just like, it's like the seeds were planted, and then when the plants grew, they were not harvested. Wow, that is a stupid. I think that's actually that's the right that's a right metaphor, right? You plant seeds and then you harvest them. They were not harvested. Look, I need to stop doubting myself, because I actually know what I'm talking about. They were not harvested. Like, the different narrative streams and the different lines of the plot were not woven together. They didn't come together. So the book ended up being a lot of work, a lot of pages about a lot of different things, and you're just like, why is this all together in one book? Do you know what I mean? Like, all the characters from Rue to Bra Abel and Black Eyed Bean and Maybelle and like Verena, it's like, why, like, it didn't make sense why they were all there. Like, it didn't come together in the way that made you feel like their lives, the intertwining of their stories made like a lot of sense, especially in the Rue, Sarah, Bra Abel, Black Eyed Bean narrative. Like, it was just, yeah. And also, the element of conjure that is in the title was barely even discussed in the book. So you're just kind of sitting there like, maybe just like name the book something else. Like, if you don't want to talk about conjure, if you don't want to talk about actual conjure stuff, that's fine. But then don't name the book Conjure Women, because it just feels like false advertising. Do you know what I mean? So that's my whole thing with this book. And it's just, this is probably one of my biggest disappointments of the year, because I was so excited to read it, and then it just completely off-ramped. This and Ties That Tether, probably the top 2 most disappointing books for me this year. Yeah, very disappointed in those 2. The next one, do you know what? The next one, the reason why I have a proper, like, I'm properly vexed about this book is because y'all really hyped this book up. So I got it, and it's Serpent and Dove by Shelby Mahurin. Guys, come on. This book is it's so not that good. Like, I just didn't understand. Everybody is like obsessed with this book. They say it's so good, and I read it and I just thought to myself, first of all, it's very long for a book one. And I know people say Sarah J. Maas steady stays writing like tomes for her book ones, but it's not even necessarily, when I say it's long, I don't even necessarily mean the number of pages. If you've read this book, it's the narrative, the way that the plot flows from start to finish. So much is covered that you're thinking to yourself, so book 2, what exactly is going to happen? Like, I just thought there was too much for a book one. There was just so much going on. And the other big problem I had with this book is that, and it's a big problem that I think a lot of fantasy writers make the mistake of, and it annoys me, is that the actual element of the magic, the world in this book, was not explained properly. This book needed a map. It needed a glossary of terms. It needed a character mind map at the beginning so that you could have the information that I hate it when writers make you hunt for information that would make your reading experience so much easier if you just had it. I need to know, because in this world, there are witches, right? So there's different kinds of witches depending, I think there's different like lineages of witches. And the different lines of the witches do have different powers or different elemental magic or whatever. And their magic is concentrated in different things, right? That I figured out halfway towards the end of the book. At some point, like if she had just said that in the beginning, you know how like Tomi Adeyemi does that, and like a lot of African fantasy writers do that, where they give you like the houses or the name of the different elemental magics just so that you have a frame of reference for what you're reading. Shelby Mahurin said, y'all will figure it out. I don't care. And I was just like, okay, but like you needed to explain it. So this book disappointed me. However, I will say this. Am I going to read Blood and Honey? It's not a priority, but if I was a gambling woman, I would say I probably will read it, because I've seen people who didn't like this book who agreed with me, who ended up reading Blood and Honey, and then they said it was better. Then there are people who read this book, loved it, and then said Blood and Honey sucked. So I'm hoping that the ones who loved this, if they think that sucks and I think this sucked, I will probably like the second book if that convoluted logic makes sense. So I probably will read Blood and Honey, low-key. Like, look out for it, because I probably will read it. And if it sucks as well, I'm also waiting for it to come out on paperback, because I will not buy that book in hardback, because if it sucks, well, I don't want to have to fight the internet. Like, I don't have to fight Bookstagram. Like, there's too many of you. Okay, so the next book that I did not enjoy this year, that disappointed me, was Kingdom of Souls by Rena Barron. I was ready to love this book. The journey I've had with this book, you have no idea. So I ordered this book twice from Book Depository. They lost it twice. They ended up having to refund me twice for losing that book. And I ordered the hardback, you know, the beautiful black cover. And then someone on Bookstagram South Africa was having a giveaway for this book. And then I kind of like, I entered the giveaway and I ended up winning the giveaway. So then I ended up arriving in this cover that is quite frankly horrendous. So it was always my plan that, oh, I'm just gonna read this one so that I can read the book, and then once in my mind I was thinking, once I absolutely sure that I love it, because I'm gonna love it, I'm just gonna reorder it from maybe Takealot or try Loot or try somebody who's coming back from the US to bring it for me, because Book Depository and I are divorced now because I can't. But then I'll give this one away. Then I read it and I was just like, I'm so glad I didn't pay hardback money for this thing and I got refunded, because no, like, I didn't enjoy this book at all. Like, do you know when there's so much happening in a book? I think I've used this metaphor before. Like, this is also the bobotie of books. Like, chutney, raisins, rice, like everything that doesn't need to be together. It's like American Thanksgiving dinner of books. The things that just don't need to, there's just so much happening all at the same time that I struggled so much for my mind to pin down what's happening. Okay, so the girl, her mother, so the main character, I'll tell you what her name is now. Ara comes from a family with magic. Ara doesn't have magic. She doesn't have a magic, doesn't know why. She wants her magic. Then twos, fast forward, you find out that her mom is like this really famous, this is like really powerful priestess, and then her mom, you find out she's evil. She's trying to resurrect some sort of devil-like figure. Then her mom impregnates herself with some sort of demon, and then she has a baby, and then that baby is aging at the rate that Renesmee ages, Twilight reference, very, very quickly. After like 3 months, the daughter's 16, and now she's like super powerful, and like now Ara needs to kill her sister when she was a baby, but then she didn't because she thought to herself, now I'm going to teach this evil demon child how to be a proper person. Spoiler alert, she couldn't. And then it's like, and then there's also a prince, because there has to be a romance stream, but then the prince comes from this other family, and then he also low-key has magic. And then look, I don't need the chaos. No. It was just like, no. If I didn't have an allergy to DNFing books, this book would have been like, I would have stopped halfway, because I would have tapped out and said, do you know what? I didn't come on this earth to die. I didn't come on this earth to be stressed out by this book, so I'm done. But I finished it, wasted many hours of my time, but it's fine. We move because it's done now, so can't take it back. So whatever. Okay, so the next book that really disappointed me, I think out of all of the ones that I read this year, this is the one that I think had the most potential to be really, really something, and the execution just was not there for me, and that is The Care and Feeding of Ravenously Hungry Girls by Anissa Gray. Okay, so the basic plot of this book is that like there are 4 sisters, right? So the oldest sister's name is Althea, and her husband get arrested and are imprisoned for fraud. Basically, they siphoned off money from like some community organization. People were donating money for struggling people in the community, and then because they were like pillars of the community, and Althea and her husband, and then they end up stealing the money, and so they end up going to jail. So now they have 2 daughters, Althea and her husband, and then I think his name is Proctor. Althea and Proctor have 2 daughters, and then okay, fine. So now they're in jail, and Althea's other 3 sisters, one of them, her name is Lillian, ends up staying with the daughters. So this is a if I'm not mistaken, it is a yeah, it's a multi-character in terms of narrative perspective, because there are multiple characters, but there are multiple narrative perspectives. So all 4 of the sisters have their own stuff going on. They have childhood traumas. They have like there's family drama, childhood traumas. There's people struggling with like their sexual identity. There's eating disorders. There's abuse. There's a whole. I'm lying. There are 3 sisters and a brother. There are 4 siblings, but 3 sisters and a brother. So the problem with this book overall is that there was too much and also not enough. This book is like 290 pages, I think. No, it's 260 pages. There is so much going on, in the sense that like, the perfect way for me to describe this is that this book, in terms of plot, in terms of character development, went wide and not deep. There are all 4 of the siblings and the 2 daughters and Proctor have so many, there are things that are mentioned about their lives, eating disorders, childhood trauma, family drama, like mother and daughter, because you find out that one of the daughters is the one who actually called the police on her parents because she has a really bad relationship with her mother. These kinds of things, but all of them are kind of touched on, but nothing is excavated, nothing is explored, nothing is like delved into. So you finish this book like, this is one of those books where I feel like every single one of the siblings, either this book needed to be 500 pages, or every single one of those siblings, Althea, Viola, Lillian, and then I think the brother, I think his name is Tom. I think all 4 of them needed their own book. This should have been a series of books where it's kind of like the same family and then people excavating, because there's so much to unpack. Like, how are you just going to have one of the sisters have an eating disorder, then the other sister has a history of trauma because the brother used to like psychologically abuse her when they were younger. They have a horrible relationship with their father who died, all of them. He was like a really like ultra super religious Bible bashing kind of guy. And they all have trauma from that. And it's like, how are you, 260 pages? So it ends up being like way too much really important stuff and not enough time to excavate it. So the book ends up falling flat because it's just like, you don't even understand why half of the stuff that happened in this book, why you were told. Like, I don't understand why you're going to tell me that one of the sisters has an eating disorder if you're not going to unpack it. Why are you telling me about the history of abuse between the brother and the sister if you're not going to unpack it? Like, why do I know all of this stuff if you're not going to unpack it? Because then it's just like, it's a really weird those are really serious topics to use as a backdrop. So I just thought that the care and feeding of rabbits and girls, I was really disappointed in that one. The other one, and I spoke about this in my November wrap-up, and I feel bad including in this, but I was disappointed because I was expecting to love it, is Cinderella is Dead by Callan Barron. This one, as I explained in my video, it was just a case of the writer like tried to do too much. Like, she bit off a bit more than she could chew. The execution wasn't all there. There was a lot of stuff that was like floating in the ether that could have been executed better. But I am hopeful that her second book, or the books, because I think this was a debut book, so I have a bit more understanding, and I hope that she kind of tries, like she does a little bit better with the second one. Then the last book of most disappointing books of 2020, it's a weird one, but it's Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. Guys, this book, I have seen so many reviews of this book on Bookstagram. I have seen this book included in so many lists of like great dark academia, romance in dark academia, like fantasy romance. And I'm just like, first of all, the romance one completely kills me because the girl's name is Alex. So the relationship between Alex and Darlington, guys, I beg, please do not call that thing romance. Like, I see where she's going, because apparently this is part one in what Leigh Bardugo wants to be a 5-part book series, and I'm just like, please don't, because this should have been a self-standing novel, and it would have been great if she had done this as a self-standing novel, because she would have taken the time to really make it a lot more fun, vibrant, interesting. And I get that it's dark academia, so it's got that kind of like cold gray twilight thing, you know what I mean? Like, it was shot in Forks, like it's cold, it's consistently overcast. I get that, but it could have been more punchy, more, do you know what I mean? But because it's a series, she felt like she could take her time to do whatever she was doing in this book, because we're gonna still, and I was just like, so I get that people say that Alex and Darlington, the seeds were set for them to have a great romance. I don't think so. Like, I finished this book and I was just like, there was no romance, because there was no romance. Like, I don't even understand what anyone is talking about when they say that there was romance in this book. There was literally none. Not even a little bit. Like, not even a little bit, guys. Like, please, I beg, don't be a liar. So that's what disappointed me about this book, because I really feel like this book, even though I feel like it was really slow, if Darlington and Alex, the romance between those two, had been explored and there'd been the thread of steaminess in this book, I feel like it would have justified, and it would have held it together a bit better, and would have made me more inclined to be, okay, like, fine, okay, Leigh Bardugo, you can do a series. But this book has no romance, so I was just like, you could definitely have one and done this book, and there was no need for you to be telling us this is going to be a 5-part series, because, like, who has the time? Like, who has the energy to read 5 of these books? Like, girl, bye. Like, and the thing that annoys me as well is that, like, the subject matter was so interesting. Like, it talks about like cults and like these, not cults, these what do you call these things? I mean, I personally feel like they're kind of cults, but these secret societies in these old school universities in the US. So like this kind of thing about secret society, the whole skull and bones type thing. And I thought it was such an interesting thing to kind of set as the basis for a dark academia / fantasy book with magic and whatever. But no, it's just, I finished that book and I was just like, I just wasted so many hours of my life. I just don't even get it. Like, and I couldn't DNF it because I kept thinking, it's gonna get better. It has to get better because everybody's been talking about this book for so long, and then it did get better, and I was just like, you people stays lying. I don't know why I don't understand that you people stays lying at this point. But anyway, Yeah, those are the books that disappointed me in 2020. Those are the 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 books that I thought were the most disappointing books of 2020 for me. Yeah, I should have DNF'd most of these, but because I can't do that, I finished them and now here we are with this video. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. Please let me know if you liked any of these books. First of all, please let me know if you agree with me, but also let me know if you really loved any of these books. And like, I really love to have a discussion about these books, to be like, if you guys feel like I really am wrong, let's chop it up in the comments. So yeah, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, like, comment, follow me on Instagram. And yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. I look forward to seeing you guys soon in my next video. Bye!